Hey guys, Parzival here, coming at you with 3 noob-friendly League Start guides, and as well, I've found guides that have a way to transition into a more expensive version of that guide. The first one we've got is the most simplest version, just putting on 2 swords, swinging around, playing Cyclone. Probably one of the most basic guides you could find. Here's some gameplay I'm showing in the back. And for the guide itself, it's by Mr. Dex2644 here. I've always referred to him for Cyclone Slayer guides. If you scroll down in terms of path of building first, he has a link here to the actual guide, which if we show it, this is what opens up. Make sure to click the show power report to get rid of all that color stuff. He has both a cheap and a more expensive gear version. So if you click here cheap and then the more expensive tree, go to items, and you can see the cheap gear and the expensive gear. So I wanted to point that out. As for the actual guide itself, it is very, very handy because if you scroll down, he has a leveling section in terms of the gems. So you level with this gem, get this gem. It's very, very hand-holdy. And he also includes, of course, a leveling section for the path of building. Now, he includes this separately, so it's 2 different paste bins. I just want to point out this is not a full path of building. There are no gems or items. It's purely for the tree. And he lets you know for the first 18 points, this is what you do. 33 points, 62 points, etc. And it also shows, if you look here, there are subclasses in the game called ascendancies, and as you go through the tree, he tells you which ones to get first. So first get this one, then get this one, etc. Personal recommendation is to actually get this node first before the other 2, because it helps you survive far more as you level. So again, wanted to point out this build first. Very simple, and more importantly, once you've collected a lot of money, and maybe you've even gotten the more expensive version of his build, but you've you can definitely make money in this game. And you want to make a build that, especially with, in this case, the upcoming Ultimatum League, you don't want to die, right? Is this Cyclone? I believe it's. Oh man, I've brain farting on the ascendancy here. But I want you to look at this GIF right here in the middle here. He's taking all this damage. He's barely being hit. He, he's if you don't want to die, this is the build, and you still want to play Cyclone. So I just wanted to point out this build as well. Link will be in the description. It is not as handholdy, so to speak, but there are a lot of good information. And by the time you get a work around to making this build, hopefully you'll know a lot more about the game, and you won't need to be handheld as much as the other one. Now on to build number 2. So, with this build, this is essentially called K's Necro Summoner. This is basically the most comprehensive and hand-holding minion build written guide for Path of Exile in general. Like, completely. If you scroll through the guide, she has videos of it, which we'll go over. If you're curious, this is what kind of the League Start summoning army experience can look like. If you like running around and having 20 minions do all the work for you, feel free. And there is also a part of the build where you're using skeletons, so you can actively cast minions as well yourself. So in terms of the build, she actually starts off with multiple builds. So you've got the League Start build, which is what the one, if you're watching this video, you should be following. And so all the important information is here. I'll go to the hand-holding part in a second. And as well, this is a build that even by itself, you can upgrade to be like insane, and you can level with just minions entirely. We have pure specters and spiders. Even if you want to have a minion bomber build, that's fine. And as for leveling, look at this. This build literally has a walkthrough for every single act itself. She has a picture of exactly what colors and gems and links to have. as well as the tree itself. So basically by the end of Act 1, you have this. By the end of Act 2, you have this. Um, super, super handy for new players. And especially for new players, having a minion build lets you focus primarily on dodging boss mechanics and stuff like that, and letting your minions do the work, as opposed to something like Arc, where you have to stop all the time to cast, and then maybe something hits you. So it is also fairly a tanky build, and there are more tanky versions of the build. She has an entire crafting guide for anything that's expensive you'll find later. I highly, highly, highly recommend this general build and guide. And I want to point out, working with summoners, working with the next upcoming Ultimatum League, this would essentially be perfect. You're having a bunch of minions in a small circle. They don't have to spread out, and it'll be great for this next league and an amazing league start build. All right, on to the next. All right, now we're getting into one of my personal, kind of biased favorites in terms of builds that I actually played multiple times. I don't usually do that, and that is Icestorm, which is a skill you get off of a unique staff. That staff being, double check real quick, the Whispering, there's the Whispering Ice. And because the skill comes from the staff, you don't even need the staff to be a 6 link or even a 4 link or anything like that. Just the sockets. Now, what does the build look like? I'll show some video while I talk about it. This build has been changed recently in the past like 2 leagues, but it's still very effective and can be rather interesting for a league start. Like I said, this is like the third build. We're kind of getting into like interesting territory. Um, but essentially, this build guide has been basically reworked and changed and constantly updated for years. This Kelvin guy, he's the best. um, but essentially, if you scroll down, there is a leveling guide here. It is pretty comprehensive. He includes, in this case, early game recipes that are handy. Like if you get some white boots, a quicksilver flask, an orb of augmentation, you get some extra movement speed in your boots, stuff like that. He makes sure so hey, make sure to take these quests, blah blah blah. He has an early tree, so you can click on this, and it tells you, okay, so this is your tree from level 1 to 24, stuff like that. And in general, very very handy. The only thing you need for this build is the staff itself. So honestly, this is a league start build that I would not recommend like minute 1 of the league, more like hour 3 of the league, if that makes sense. And he does actually mention that, I believe, in the guide. Um, but if you're wondering, like, well, I mean, there's a lot of uniques and special things you need for this build. He shows right here, this was literally his absolute crap gear starting at, like, in this case, level 38. He just had a staff. He managed to get a 5 socket, which is great. You can work with 4 sockets, or even 3 maybe. And he just had just random gear slapped on. And Ice Storm is just so powerful dealing damage that it just helps you steamroll the moment you get the staff. The staff is very, very, very cheap staff. It also comes from a divination card that you can farm, I believe, in Act 2 if you really wanted to, in Soul Self-Found. And it's a very, very common card. And it's essentially just, it's really easy. Once you get the staff, you can just keep going. And And as you can see a little bit later, he has Icestorm, which is a nice leveling. He gets some attributes from Parandus Blazon Belt. The rest of the gear is still not very good. So it's very, very easy to league start with, get some cheap gear. And he still has a 5 socket here. I recommend this build personally, and he even has some videos on leveling with it. And the entire guide here, by the way, very in-depth, Act 1, Act 2. Not as in-depth as the Minion build, which is like insanely detailed, but still very, very, very handy. Now, let's say you're playing this build and you reach endgame and you're like, it's kind of good, but it's not deleting things. This is where, as a Scion, you can go into aura stacking. It's kind of, after being nerfed, it's still good. It might be nerfed again after this upcoming patch in a few days. We'll see. But I just wanted to point out that if you're playing Icestorm and you're like, it's kind of meh, if you farm it enough and you get the currency, you can make an aura stacking build because it's the same class. You don't have to level up a new character. And I'll also include this link in the description. Hope you guys enjoyed. I didn't want to make a super long guides thing. Just a couple interesting ones, as well as ones that have a very detailed leveling section in their forum post. If you're really curious and you want to look up other guides for a skill that you like, let's say Blade Storm, which is a melee skill, just go to Google, type in the name of the skill, Blade Storm PoE, and then type in the word like League Starter Guide, right? Name of the skill, League Starter Guide. I typed Blade Storm wrong, and look through the first couple links for the pathfactual.com forum. For example, this is the first one that pops up, etc. If you scroll through it, it probably won't be that bad. He has a budget gear, FAQ, stuff like that. Again, hope you guys enjoyed, and I wish you a great league start and a great rest of your day.